Greetings. Today we are going to review the 4th Lantern Rite event that Genshin has hosted, and before we even continue, do remember to check the guide furniture from this NPC. Otherwise, spoiler ahead, and let's begin. This year's theme is about embracing technology, and we see this from the guides that is implemented with some special tech. At least that's how the narration works. And I can see how the traditional arts have to embrace technology in order to attract younger audience to be interested in the subject. And Chinese Lunar New Year has always been about family reunion, and this is something that Cloud Retainer want to emphasize. And I think this is pretty good. They bring forth new characters with Garmin alongside with his father Ibdak as the center of this event story. Naturally, someone with his surname is going to be an tea leaf merchant. His name has implied that his whole generation and lineage is supposed to sell tea leaf. And probably the reason why he is so pissed that Gaming is going to be the first ever children to break free of this family bond. Besides that, I like how they are able to capture the essence of an relationship between a father and a child that has gone south. And we see this when no matter what Kami is doing, even if its gesture is from a good point of view, is often returned with a cold shoulder from his father. And as such, Kami just felt that it is not even possible to change his opinion at any point in time. And you can even see that he is hesitant about the idea to be able to change his mind. And that is pretty on point for those that experience this as well, or for those that are aware of this kind of relationship. Then we also see some details where he just finds it really awkward to try to sit alongside with his father to have an heart-to-heart talk. And even then, they both knew how strong their own opinion is and is unlikely to back down from their position. And of course, this whole situation ends up with a happy ending where they reconcile together. I can't say that I didn't expect this from happening from the beginning, but overall, the event is pretty enjoyable with pretty fun moments. Oh, before I forget, in case you're wondering, why does Genshin want to change Wushi lion dance into Wushou dance in Genshin? Wushou is essentially beast dance. So why? It turns out that it does make sense, because when we trace back to history, there is no lion in China. And between you and me, the only way for there to be lion in China is for Alex the Lion to pay a visit there himself. And we know for sure that doing so will be the end of the franchise. Just aside, before there is the iconic lion dance, when we look back into the earliest form of mask dance, is often depicting different animals, ranging from fish, dragons, and phoenixes. And of course there are possibly more that is used for the performance. Plus it makes more sense narratively, considering that the Yue is surrounded by a lot of illuminated beasts, including cranes, goats, dragons, and the beast Gaming is donning is based off Xuanni. All in all, that is a possible theory why they go after the term Wushou rather than Wushi. Also, we can see that Gaming's suit is filled with LED lights, and earlier we talked about this year's Lantern Rite theme is about embracing technology, and Gaming's suit symbolizes traditional arts embracing technology to try to appeal to the younger audience, which I think is pretty cool. Plus, when you try to use his splash attack, it looks like a giant yo-yo, and who doesn't like a human-sized yo-yo trying to destroy targets? With that said, it's time to highlight some of the memorable moments, as well as some things that you might miss if you're not playing in the Mandarin version. Whenever Gaming is speaking, he tends to use a lot of water particle in the Mandarin version.
不是吧，那么贪心，等下吃饱了吃不下正餐哦。
This makes him sound a lot more casual and easygoing, which is reflected as the traveler's impression of him. This is not something that's easy to convey in the English version. The use of model particle tends to change the meaning and what the person wants to convey. So this is some kind of characteristic that you couldn't actually feel in the English version. On a side note, we know that Gaming is an armed escort and he can does a better job in protecting your goods, making sure that they can deliver to your home without any damages. Better than most delivery services as of date, but since he's an armed escort, it does brings me back to comparing with him and Teia. Teia is a bodyguard, he's an armed escort, so I think that's gonna be an worthy topic to discuss in the future. I think we have spoken enough about Gaming, so it's time to move off and discuss about seeing familiar cars again from Li Yue and Fontaine. Even though it makes no sense for a Fontaine cast to pop out of nowhere, but in terms of project scale, it does make sense to bring them back. It's easier to reach out to actors and actresses working on the Fontaine group, given this version is mostly focused on Fontaine's cast. And this has happened before with Wimplume's event inviting Sumeru's cast. It just makes it much more easier for the project team to manage with the time frame that they have. Going back to enjoyable moments, it's nice seeing Yao Yao pulling a long TT for the festival. How most tourists fall to this one simple trick? I think one of the most memorable moments has to be with Shenhe, with her touching Gang Yu's horn and describing it as a form of medicine, and somehow recalling her childhood trauma managed to surprise everyone, including the toughest band that Gaming has ever met. I can't really blame him though. Imagine a child have to carry such an insane load from the base of the mountain to the top every single morning, and that's pretty insane. At least now we know Shenhe's training regime for her superhuman strength. And I think amongst all scenes, my favorite has to be with Hu Tao and Farina. I have a soft spot for both of these characters, so I'm just biased at this point. And last but not least, the grandfather of all adapters, Zhongli himself. And it's pretty good to see how does he cope with his retirement plans, ranging from trying out the latest technology to fly kites and starting a new podcast with Iptak, sharing wisdom behind tea leaves culture, and also if there is a possibility to add osmanthus wine into the mix. And they even added a section to discuss about how to better manage your expectation. And at the end, he even played hide and seek with another ancient dragon and he managed to win. So that's pretty impressive feat from the ancient dragon himself. And that is all the events highlight that I can recall with. For now, I do have to highlight some of the mechanics that they have implemented that can elevate your experience with the story. First, choices can affect different outcome. At first, I tried doing one, Gaming's one, avoiding his relative, but on the second thought, I thought it's great to meet up with his family and let him enjoy a little bit of family warmth. And surprisingly, there's a different cutscene with him interacting with his relatives, so I think that's pretty cool. And that's not the only options available. During the kite making scenes, we get to choose the expression for Paimon's kite, and depending on your choices, you're going to get a different character talking about your kite design. So I think it's a pretty nice touch on to how you can get a varied experience based on that. Also, for this type of event, we tend to try and find familiar character and see how they're going to interact with us. And for the most part, we know that they tend to just talk amongst themselves. And it feels like we are just eavesdropping them, and that's not good. But this time round, I think there are some characters that their conversation do involve the traveler as well. They do ask you for some things, even though it's not too significant, but I do appreciate this type of interaction more than usual. So it's a great change if they do intend to continue these efforts. If there is anything else worth adding, I would say it's with the English translation for the Mandarin version. We all know that it's pretty difficult to translate the full meaning from Mandarin, especially when you got characters like Hu Tao, who tends to speak very little with a lot of meaning packed into it. For this instance, this line that she is speaking can be further reduced to just the first two sentences, and it will still convey the original message pretty well. I will add that the English team actually tried to go above and beyond. They added more lines and trying to increase the dramatic effect of the scene. While I get their intention to provide a better experience for the player, to me, it does lose the original intention for the lines, because we know that Hu Tao is actually describing a section from a horror story. and Furina have probably read that story already, which is why she chose specific lines, possibly the climax of the story, to jolt Furina's memories. And it makes sense why the following scene, Furina would let out a scream, because she already knows what is about to happen next. So there's really no need for them to add in additional context or expression to bring out the original meaning of the text. Perhaps they are worried that the audience wouldn't be able to understand what is going on with the scene, but I do hope that they do try and have more confidence with their delivery. With that is essentially everything that is needed to discuss about this year's Lantern Rite story event. But this wouldn't be complete without discussing about the mini-games as well. There are some good things about these mini-games and there are some issues that is worth discussing as well. To start off, I will talk about the easiest event thus far, which is the exploration event. It itself hasn't been particularly spectacular. It's meant for you to just chill and look at the whole scenery as a whole, and it serves its purpose well. Besides, I think the game designer intentionally placed all these challenges around places of interest that could lead you to some hidden events or secret treasures that you might have missed if you were to explore the area yourself. Overall, even though it's not the most engaging event, I think it's still a pretty nice casual event to just play through. The next event is the puzzle event. Some of you might like it, some of you might not, but I think this event is an improvement over the previous attempts. In the past, puzzle event tends to be finished off pretty easily, and the real challenge really only starts at the end. And to me, that's where the fun just starts to begin, and that's also when you won't have any more fun. So I don't particularly like that kind of experience. But for this time round, it's done pretty well balanced. You get some challenge in between, rather than shoving all the difficulty towards the end, so overall I have a better experience this time round. Last but not least is the bumper car event, and it itself is a pretty nice experience. As usual, I continued with my personal vendetta, trying to support the character that I want to pair with, like Dignari and Kolei in this instance, and also Team Xianyun versus the Animal Tall Boys, and it's great. And there are some instances where the matches are really close for me to win, even though it doesn't really matter much in the grand scheme of things, but you know, it's still pretty fun to try your best to mess around. If there's anything that is holding this event back, would probably be trying to sync different players' data. Sometimes I see players disappearing like a ghost, and sometimes I get hit by ghosts. Maybe it's time to call Hu Tao to investigate in this situation for this event. But that aside, my favorite moment about this event is not trying to win against players, but for this particular event, trying to cooperate with another players. And it's not easy trying to establish a friendly relationship, especially when you got two super ancient dragons at each other's throats. But, you know, we prevailed. So the moral of the story, power of friendship beats two ancient dragons trying to kill each other. This is an anime game after all. With that said, that concludes the entire Lantern Rite event review. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and let me know what you think about this event. Is the event too short? Do you expect more? Or maybe some aspect is not up to your liking? So just let me know down the comment section below. Otherwise, take care and goodbye.